Hello class, we find ourselves with another video in regards to Python programming. Notice that I'm going to start using the PyCharm IDE. In this particular video, what we'll do is let's demonstrate some for loops and we'll cover some range method as well. As you notice, there are 3 single quotes in order to allow me to comment out sections as opposed to individual lines as you see up here. So this is just basically a note indicating that all sequences are made of elements. In the below example, each letter is an element making up that sequence. And this will be more clear here in a minute. So this for loop marches through or iterates a sequence, one element at a time. So if we look at our first program, as we're going to test this out, what we have is a variable named word and an input statement. And it's going to request and enter a word, and that value is going to be placed into the variable word, and then it's going to print out a statement. Here's each letter in your word. The for loop starts for the letter in word, print out that letter. So let's look at this and see exactly how this works. So the initial variable is set. It's asking to enter a word. Let's do justice. Why not? Hit enter, and what you see is that it has taken each letter on the word provided and it's broken each letter up to its element. And this is what I was referring to, that the sequence is made of elements. So what you might think that it prints out the full word provided, it breaks it up to each letter accordingly, and this is why it's printed out as such, one letter or one element at a time. We'll go ahead and comment these out. Let's move on. So now the range function for a for loop. The range function with the for loop, you can use a for loop to count. This example provides a range telling the loop how many times to count. So here's my code example that I'm going to do. I'm undoing the comment so that this will run. I'm going to go ahead and clear this out so that we can see it. So what's going to happen here is it's going to print counting. This is just a regular string print. But here is a for each I in range of 10. So it's going to have at least 10 elements in here. You're going to print each one till the end. So let's run it and see what it looks like. So here we have our initial statement, counting, prints out the string, and then it counts it for us. And you recall Python begins with 0 as opposed to 1. So we have our count, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Now we can increase this count to whatever way we want, and what this will do for us is it'll add on each element accordingly all the way up. So now we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way up. Once we start doing 100 or even 10, it's kind of hard to read that. So what we could do is we can add a space in between that. And notice that since I'm working with integers and strings here, I'm just basically using a comma. So let's go ahead and run this with this space in between and see if it's a little bit more readable. So it is actually a little bit more readable. Now we can see the specific elements of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's going to travel all the way up to 99 because of course it starts at 0. So that's an example of count. In the real world you could use count for a number of things. Keep task specifically, and let's move on. I'm going to comment this out. Alright, on this next example, given a range, Now with the same as this here, this is a range example. But if you're giving 3 values, the range will actually give you, the 3 values would be the start point, the end point, and a number to count by. So before we've just been given 1 value. So let's look at this code example for range, and we have 3 values here, and we've made a notation. It's going to print out the string that's going to count by 5s. And again, we have for I in the range of 0, 50, or 5. So in this example, it should have a start of 0, an end of 50, and then count them by 5s. So let's go ahead and run this and look at this. So here we have counting by 5s, just our printout string, and again 0, 5, 10, 15. I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and add a space in between that, and that way it'll make it a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and run this again, and now we can clearly see that it's 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, all the way up to 45. And again, it stops prior to 50 endpoint because it started with a 0. So you can do that as well in your codes. Now here's an example also doing basically the same thing, except it's going to count backwards as opposed to forward for our range. And I am going to go ahead and put that space in between already, just to make it look a little bit easier when we do this. So we're given, and again, 3 values, so we should start at 10 and end at 0 with a -1 as our count. And here we have 10, 9, 8 all the way back to 1. So that's an example of counting by 5s, or I'm sorry, it's not counting by 5s, it's counting by 1s. Counting by 1s, but backwards. Okay, so let's go ahead and comment this out. So here's one more example that I have here. This is a little bit differently. I have a def main. It looks a little different, but it works basically the same because again it's a for loop, but it's going to use for else, and we've seen a little bit of this with the while or else ifs. So similar deal, we have a name variable. This time my name is going to be put in there, and for a in name, so it's going to use that variable, a value of Matt Cole. You're going to print it out and end. I'm going to do the comma deal again just real quick, just make it a space so it's a little bit easier to read. Else it's going to print never mind. So it's going to probably do both here, but we're going to go ahead and run it and we'll see. So we have the space in between each one of them because we're breaking this sequence out to each element. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and it'll do the same thing for the space too, mind you, because it also is an element within that sequence. And then of course it prints out never mind at the end. So that's some examples of a for loop. For loop, basically you can break the sequence into many elements, and then you can also utilize the range as far as counting forward or backwards, and you're not confined just to counting as ones. You can count it by any number of them. You can even use 3, 4, 5 based upon what you need at the time. So there you go.